Jalen Brunson has 139 clutch points, 22 assists, 52% shooting in clutch time. He accounts for 47% of the Knicks' clutch points. Showtime. Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Corner 3 podcast. Whether you a basketball junkie, you just getting into basketball, whatever level of love for the game that you are, this is the podcast for you. I'm Tone, Mr. Still Not Worried, your host. Jared, Rush are my co-hosts. How y'all fellas doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Feeling good. Feeling good.
It's always a good day when the Lakers are the number 2 seed in the West. That's all I'm gonna say. So if you see me over here dusting my shoulders off, don't mind me. I'm just, just living in the moment. That's all.
Speaking of the Los Angeles Lakers, Bron had some things to say recently. I'm gonna let y'all hear it.
Why do you want to be the face of the league when all the people that that cover our game and talk about our game on a day-to-day basis shit on everybody? I mean, that responsibility that's just weird. It's weird energy from the people that I don't know. But Channing, he said it. He said it perfectly. Couldn't say it no better. But Ant said he don't want it. Obviously I didn't ask for it, but I knew there was a responsibility for me. Not only to my family, my friends, my community, and whoever that was going to follow my journey throughout my career.
So it's been a debate and a conversation for probably the last 2-3 seasons. Now that we see obviously on the back end, LeBron, Steph, KD, who's going to be the face of the league? Who's the next face of the league? What were your thoughts on Bron's comments?
It's first of all, number one, I didn't realize we were moving to clips and integrated into the show. See, like I'm just I'm so grateful to be here and just witness the growth of the Corner 3 podcast because Tone doesn't tell us what he's gonna do, how he's gonna start the show, the stuff he's gonna move into the show. So me and Jared, for everybody who isn't familiar, we pretty much let Tone quarterback this whole thing. So it's always an experience coming on to see how we're gonna move and transition into our topic. So um that's one thing that we can definitely keep because I like the touch. I like the touch. um Trying to be more serious. It's funny. That was after. Obviously, it was a post game interview, and I was actually up. Surprised everybody who knows me. I was awake for the whole game. It was like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning here on the East Coast, and I remember trying to find post game interviews, and I happened to stumble upon uh, Spectrum Sports, whatever YouTube, and they had an interview, and it was one of those moments where I was like, oh. Yeah, we're going to be talking about this one for a couple of days. Just seeing Bron's tone, the things that he said, and whenever Bron speaks, and when he speaks about certain topics, people are going to listen. So I figured it was something that would sort of dominate headlines, and here we are. One, you all know how I feel about the face of the league conversation. I feel like it's a problem it's a solution in search of a problem. It's not like at the beginning of every season we take a tally and like, all right, who's going to be the next face of the league? Like it's something that just happens organically, it happens naturally, and it's a talking point that I don't really understand because no one's ever like had a consensus like, okay, this person, we're going to vote this person the face of the league. It just happens. Happened with MJ, happened with Bron, happened with Kobe. Steph, is sort of in the mix now, him and Bron over the last few years. It just happens naturally, and it's something that tends to take care of itself. So I never really understood why it's a constant topic of conversation because it's not something that it's like officially voted on. It just happens. And I think the players today we have more access I think than ever to players, right? There's social media. Every league has official social media accounts. They're all constantly showing interviews of players. Players have podcasts. There's YouTube exclusives. Like in comparison to the other major sports, like I feel like fans just have a more personal connection with NBA players. And with a lot of that comes entitlement. So I think you see that with, with sports betting being integrated into the league, people saying, "Oh, you botched my parlay" or whatever. Like, so I think there may not be more negativity than in years or decades or generations past, but I think there's more like the fans and media have a more direct avenue to let players hear their negativity, and players are able to hear more than they have in years past. So I watched the Bill Simmons podcast. I think he released it last night or whatever, and he ran through a litany of like storylines that dominated decades past, and how um, great players were sort of criticized in the media, but there wasn't social media. Like, social media is one thing that sets this generation apart from other generations, where they hear more. Whether there's actually more than in years past, I can't say. I wasn't around in the 70s, but they definitely have the ability to hear more and see more, and people have the ability to get in touch with players more so than ever before. So I get how players feel like people are constantly shitting on them. I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on this podcast. It's the first time it's come up, but I said, all right, my mom sees it. I apologize. But I'm quoting LeBron. So I can get how they feel that way, but it's just one of those topics that's just dominating conversation right now, and hopefully it goes away once we get to the playoffs, in my opinion.
Jared, being that somebody that's actually in the media, right? Do you feel the media, and just kind of like Rush was saying, on social media in this era of basketball, that we don't actually appreciate what we're seeing enough in this era?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we always kind of in like what's next for the league, and we don't get to actually appreciate what's happening right now. And like with LeBron, it's always been, all right, we're gonna criticize him, but then we're always coming back to the topic of, oh, is this player the next LeBron? Is this player the next Steph Curry? When Steph Curry was on the rise, they was criticizing him for not being clutch or whatever the case may be, being on a super team. And then now the conversation is who's the next Steph Curry. So why we just can't get
You muted, bro. There you go.
there you go. Okay. But yeah, so like these players, they always get the criticism. So I get why they feel like, I don't want to be the face of the league. Ant said it before. He was like, I don't want it. And I feel like I was having this conversation with Chris the other day. I feel like a lot of these a lot
Shout
of
out to
people
Chris Lindsay Sports.
A lot of people don't want to be like basically like have a European as the face of the league either. But like Rush just said, it has to be something that's organic, something that has to just come from putting in the body of work over time.
You both could answer this. You guys know, in life in general, there has to be a balance of, you have kids. We all have kids on here. Like, it's a balance of, you want to tell your children, hey, you're doing a good job, but there is a time and a space to critique, to say, hey, you need to improve this. Where do you think that is actually needed, or the proper channels in this game? Because it can't just be like, oh, this player did great and they shot 27%. There has to be a pocket where critique is okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. I think when things like this get called out by LeBron, I think they're speaking more toward like mainstream media, right? Like your first takes, your inside the NBAs, even some of your more popular sports shows that maybe are like streaming. Like, I think DraftKings or FanDuel, they have like talk shows and whatnot with former players. So I think when you're looking at sort of those mediums, and you look at the topics that dominate the headlines, a lot of them tend to skew negatively. And some of that you can look at and say, hey, well, this is entertainment, right? This is business. It's all about what's going to drive the most clicks, what's going to drive the most ratings. And you kind of get that, but I think there needs to be some way to find a balance. What that balance is, I don't know. Otherwise, I'd be making a lot more than I make right now. So I don't have the answers. But I can absolutely sympathize with the players, because it seems like, though I don't watch First Take religiously, though I don't watch Inside the NBA religiously, when I do watch those shows, it does seem like the content or the topics that are being discussed tend to skew negatively. Now, I think this is a smaller part of a broader conversation in terms of just how people are on the internet in general. When you talk about forums and social media, I think some of that sort of feeds into what a lot of the national TV shows talk about. But like I said, that's a bigger conversation, and I don't think we want to tackle it here on the Corner Three podcast.
Jared, Russia mentioned it earlier about how with social media we have so much access to the fans. We have a personal connection with them. We have all the different type of media packages. We have League Pass. We have the ability to be able to watch just the Bulls. We have modern technology and science that has players being able to get back from games like this. Do you feel that modern technology has actually helped or harmed the NBA product?
So I'm 50-50 on it, but here's why I think it's 50-50. I think it is better in a way because teams have more, sorry, everybody has more access to watching their favorite team. But at the same time, we have to actually pay, these extra platforms like League Pass and everything to actually watch our favorite teams. And then some people there have like these blackout things in their cities where they can't actually watch their favorite team. So that's one thing. And we need more coverage of like small market teams. I feel like that's another thing we need to talk about because that would drive more traffic to these other teams, and we won't have these constant conversations about, oh, LeBron said this, Steph Curry did this, and rightfully so. They're great, but the other teams, like, they need national coverage too. Like the Pistons, how good they've been doing. Shout out to Rush for establishing that in the offseason, saying they're gonna make the playoffs. But these other teams who's really coming up, the Rockets, of course, OKC, the Cavs, they need to be talked about more. And these national televised games is always these teams where, all right, they was good, 5-10 years ago, but we don't want to see them today. Like, we don't want to see the Warriors play every night, or no offense to y'all, the Lakers every night, or the Knicks every night for my matter. Like honestly, I didn't want to really watch the Knicks and the Heat last night. I did, but hey, we just need more small market teams just need to get to shine. And then, like with Twitter and social media, they're always bashing, all this ring culture and all that. But I get it. Winning is the ultimate goal, but you can't bash a player because they lost. It's not fair to them because they put in the work. Not everybody gets to win a championship. So I feel like that's one of the downsides to social media really taking a step towards sports coverage.
Now, I want to ask you, Rush, in regards to this conversation of modern technology. A part of modern technology is obviously the advancement of science. Science back then was not the same that it is now. For example, a knee injury back in the day, that was career ending. Achilles injury, forget it. You never playing again. With all of the modern technology, all of the science, all the analytics, all the stats, do you feel that players are not taking advantage of that and playing less? Or is that one of those conversations that's been put in the mass media that actually isn't actual factual?
Well, first of all, I didn't know where you were going. You were talking about science, and look, I'm an English major, so I got a little nervous over it. I don't know what you was about to ask me, but I well, first let me just say, just going quickly to technology. Is it better or worse for the league? I don't think you can look at the popularity of the league as it stands today and not give a large amount of credit to the rise of social media and Instagram and Twitter and highlights and YouTube and mixes and things like that. There is a large number of generations that are younger than us coming up behind us where they consume the game solely in clips and highlights. And that has contributed to the popularity of the league, which is why the ratings discussion is so nuanced, because if you look strictly at television numbers, yes, the ratings are down, but nobody ever talks about like digital impressions and how much of the game is being consumed through that medium. So I think it's a situation where you got to take the good with the bad. Social media has allowed the league to reach so many fans who they would not have been able to reach if they were just strictly on traditional television. So with that comes, some of the other stuff. So I think overall, I would say that technology has been a big benefit to the league. But you pray for rain, you got to deal with the mud. So you just got to deal with some of the negativity. As far as science goes, I just think we're in a different time, man. Like players are making ridiculous amounts of money. Like Shea can sign an extension this summer, where I think in the last year of it, he'd be making was it $70 or $80 million?
$80 million a year,
which is insane. Now I would probably pay it to him if I were the owner, because I don't know how many SGAs I'm gonna get to come through Oklahoma City. But just think about the amount of money that is, and though it might be, comparable to a drop in the bucket for a billionaire owner, that's still an investment, and that's a significant investment. So I think as players are, they're dealing with back-to-backs and they're doing more traveling and maybe playing in the off season, that's an investment that ownership and the teams want to protect. So some of the downside to that is, a player's going to sit a second night of a back-to-back against, forgive me, Charlotte, or Chicago. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just how it is. And I think team doctors and organizations are looking at the science and saying, hey, if we're able to keep, this star player at this amount of minutes per night, or we can give this star player this amount of rest during this stretch of 5 games and 7 nights, it'll probably keep them fresher throughout the duration of the season. 82 games is a long season, man. And then you throw in playoffs for teams that are actually competing. So I know fans are like, hey, we pay money and, we're the reason that you guys are worth whatever. And I get it. And that's true to an extent. But are you going to be more upset if a player skips a second night of a back-to-back in March? Or are you going to be upset if they're overworked and they get injured and now they're out for the playoffs and your team might not even make the playoffs? So it's sort of a balancing act. And I think teams have sort of leaned into the analytics of it and are looking at analytics of not only the game, but of science in terms of these players and their bodies and, the best way to preserve them throughout the grind of an 82-game season. And they're doing the best that they can do.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in seeing that, because we have the discussions all the time. Like, oh, this player, they should be playing. They should actually fight through it, because back in the 90s and the 80s, they played through everything. I think, like you said, what people forget is that they might be billionaires and obviously could buy our lives 3 times over, but it's a business, it's an investment. I'm putting this $80 million expecting a return. I want to see the best version of that return. So if you're not playing a back-to-back, that's all right with me. The fans will be mad, and I'm not saying me personally. I'm talking about the owner. Probably is not going to have a problem with that because it's an investment. And I've known Jared since we started Threads, and he has brought this conversation up on multiple different occasions. I want to ask you where you are at currently in the mindset of, should the NBA have an 82-game season or should it be shortened?
Before you
I was going to say.
Before you answer that, Jason Kidd said that season should be shorter as well. And Jason Kidd's played, in the era where 82 games was praised.
Jason Kidd got Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis on the team, 2 of the most injured
This is before the
ever.
Anthony Davis.
That's why he wanted to play 72
This was when Luka was still there.
Luka too, shoot. Jason Kidd ain't slick. He trying to keep them players on the court. Now, go ahead. What do you think, Jared? What do you think about is 82 the right amount, or should we go lower?
I think they should go slightly lower, 70 games, or if they don't want to do shorter than 70 games, probably shorten the playoffs. Maybe make the first round 3 games, and then make the second round 5 games, and then the conference finals and the final 7 games. Because we know the players are bigger, stronger, whatever you want to say about them. They're more athletic now. A lot of people don't think they're, as strong and athletic as back in the day. But like we talked about modern technology, it advances throughout the years. So players now are more skilled, more athletic, and it's a lot. Even though we don't think it is a lot more physical. And these players, they're prone to get hurt. So I feel like if you want the best product, maybe you should shorten the games, and it would eliminate back to backs, get players more rest, and we will actually get to see players on a regular basis on, as a full spectrum of seeing how good they really are for a full season. Like we'll get to probably see Kawhi more. We'll get to see, you know, Kevin Durant, LeBron, Steph Curry probably add some seasons to their career because it's less of a load on them with all the games. But that's my take on it.
Did you have
Look.
anything to add?
Look, I get it. I really do. Man, I love basketball, and the more you can't give me enough basketball. Even if, like, I understand all the arguments, but hearing like change first round to like best of 3, second round best of 5. I feel like.
But it used to be like that though.
No, I understand,
Mm-hmm.
but I think understand that NBA fans are never satisfied. Let's put that out. So you reduce it. They're gonna be like, oh well, my team would have won if they had 2 more games to try to win the series. But I just think that also if you take basketball away from fans, I feel like that sort of hurts the experience too, right? Like I think maybe there's some other ways that they can be creative and try to get players more rest. I don't know what the logistics are with scheduling. I know there's arenas, and arenas are booked for different types of events, so they're a little hamstrung in that capacity. But I just don't think I don't think we'll ever see less than 82 for a while, just because of the amount of money it would cost the league and cost individual teams. But I really feel like, just as a basketball fan, like, why would you want less basketball? Like every time the game goes into overtime, what's one of the first posts you see? It's free basketball. Like, I would watch the Celtics and the Bulls if that was the only game. If the Celtics and the Bulls somehow they created some tournament where the most trash teams in the league competed, I would watch that game every single night. I'd clip it till I had nothing left to clip. But that's just me. I understand I'm one basketball fan out of billions, but I don't see how giving you less of a product is better for a fan in a relationship where we consume, right? Like I don't see it. I don't personally want less basketball, but I don't think that there's a way to ever get the league to agree to it unless you can say, hey, we'll still keep you at the same amount of revenue, or we'll be able to increase your revenue, because at the end of the day, the league is a business, and these owners are running businesses, and that's revenue that's hard to get up, especially for like struggling for teams that are like not as good as some of the mid-level to upper echelon teams. But I understand that might not be a very popular take, but I love hoops, so I know y'all do too. I'm not saying I'm the only one here that loves basketball, but I don't like the idea of less basketball.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever happen just because of the money that's involved now. These TV deals that we see, all of that comes along with it. And I know the owners also won't like that. I'm not paying SGA 80 million for 60 games. That right. I can't. It would be an uproar. The owners would have something to say about it. The players will have something to say, because it affects everybody's pockets now. And that's where it gets different. And we've seen it before when they had CBA negotiations and lockouts. To try to get that many people on the same page regarding what's coming in their pockets, that's where it's tough. And I don't think we'll ever see it. And like you said, maybe they get creative in figuring out how to get more rest. Maybe they should go talk to Pop. Pop did a great job figuring out how to get Timmy rest, Tony Parker rest at the back end, Manu, the whole crew. So that's something that should be studied also for teams, of figuring out how to, again, the analytics. How can I have them at the best level?
But with Pop, But Pop's situation, he didn't care about those fines. He would rest players on national televised games, and he would just be like, "Whatever, I'll take the fine."
But see, that's the thing. Like it is happening. Like teams have found a way to give their players more rest. It's just that fans are up in awe about it, or up in uproar about it, which is understandable, right? Like it's a dicey situation because you have to work within the confines of this being a business and the league wanting to make as much money as possible. And it's going to be real difficult for them to do that if you take games away. So teams are sort of forced to find creative ways to give their players rest. Unfortunately, the person that's most impacted by that is fans who may be buying tickets for a given game. So I don't know that there's a perfect solution for everybody to win, because if there's less games, that means the players are going to be making less money, and you're saving billionaires money. So it's just messy, any kind of way you look at it. So it's tough, but I think we're just going to continue to see teams rest players. Maybe there's a way where they can figure out how to do less back-to-backs. The team has gotten creative, like in the COVID era. Now you see more teams doing sets, like the Timberwolves will play the Nuggets like 2 games in a row in Denver, right? And then the next time they play, they might play, 2 games in a row in Minnesota. Sort of doing that to cut down on travel and help with rest. So those are just some of the small things that I know the league has done, and maybe they can continue to find more ways to be creative. But I think we're going to be at 82 for a while, to be honest.
Now we've been talking.
What if they
No,
just
go ahead.
expand the season? Like, not keep the same amount of games, but spread the games out more, so like it'll be longer than the calendar year per se.
I mean, I'm all for it, but I don't know. Well, maybe we could get somebody in here who know how the league works in that respect, because I think you have to worry about other activities going on in these arenas. And then, you have WNBA that kicks off in the summer. You don't necessarily want to overlap that too much. So I don't know, but I definitely would be for them. Look, like I said, I'll take basketball's already year round, but if they played closer to year round, I'd be all for it. So maybe we can do some research. Like I said, get somebody on here who knows a little bit more. Maybe we can get Mags on and see if she can speak to it a little bit. Although I know she's really important, so we might sign like some contracts or something to get it wrong. But I think she'd be a good person to just speak to the viability of that potential, and maybe why it hasn't been done already.
That's something that we definitely could look into, definitely talk about furthermore. We'll reach out. If you're watching this, we'll reach out later some way on the back channels. Something you might hear from the mayor. We don't know yet. But we speaking investments and we speaking money. It's been a lot of money discussion on here so far early off in this episode. But it kind of makes sense because that's what the NBA was revolved around. And it was something that was mentioned at the beginning of the year by I think some guy named Antonio Burnett. He mentioned that it was a little bit concerning that Embiid was in the Olympics. We see the injuries happen, and this guy Antonio said like a month ago that you should probably on this podcast here that they should probably sit Embiid for the rest of the season. Well, obviously the 76ers watched our episode and took our advice. Joel Embiid is out for the rest of the season, and it doesn't sound good. He is supposed to possibly look into getting an experimental surgery that consists of him breaking his hip so that they could do a meniscus transplant. Looking at this, the 76ers already are rumored to be talking to the league to try to be able to get a medical retirement filed regarding Joel Embiid. Are we firsthand witnessing possibly one of those what if moments again in the league regarding an injury? What if Brandon Roy wasn't injured? What if Hardaway didn't get injured? Are we actually witnessing that right now with Joel Embiid?
Go ahead, Jared.
Probably, but rightfully so. I don't know. Embiid's body just been breaking down on him since basically college, and maybe he does need to retire. And I think he does need to consider his options. He has a child, and you don't want to be, 40. Can't chase after your child, after you've been a pro athlete your whole life. So he should weigh his options. Honestly, I agree with you about the whole situation with the Olympics. Like he should have been playing in that. Um, I think I told you guys that I didn't think it was going to work out with him and Paul George because they're both just too injury prone. So I feel like it's the right move for him.
So is it safe to say, Rush, that the Embiid era is over in Philly?
I don't know. That might still be a little premature. It doesn't look good. I'm not going to sit here and try to paint, a beautiful picture of the situation. But I think now that they've collectively made the decision to shut him down, they can work toward getting him back right. And if it's the surgery or this experimental surgery, then so be it. But I think you've got that much money because I think he just signed an extension recently. You got that much money tied into a singular player. You gotta leave no stone unturned in terms of getting them back to as close to their peak as possible. And I want to take a second and just do something. I know Joel Embiid is a depending upon who you talk to is a relatively unpopular player. I know Knicks fans feel some kind of way because he tried to did grab Mitch in midair last season, and that was dirty for whatever it's worth. But it's a guy who wanted to play for the U.S. in the Olympics. I mean, how many opportunities do players get to actually do that, right? I mean, there's a handful of players who it's a given if they're healthy and they're willing. Yeah, they'll be in there. But I don't necessarily blame him for playing because I know he probably saw it as like a once or a couple of a life, once or twice in his career will he get to do something like that. I just think it sucks, man. When he's able to play, he's a supremely talented basketball player. And I just hate that, from the outside looking in, his body's just sort of betrayed him. Maybe they've made some bad decisions on playing when he shouldn't have been, or not opting for surgery when he shouldn't have got, or when he should have gotten it. But I think it's just overall, it's just really sad what's happened. And I would like to think that there's nothing more that he wants than to be out on the court, but he just can't. He can't do it and sustain the level of play that you would expect from all NBA guys. So it's just sad. But yeah, I don't think the era in Philly, the Embiid era in Philly is over. I think they'll sort of see what comes of whatever happens, be it just a traditional surgery or if they do the experimental one. And then we'll look at next year or middle of next year, whenever he can get back, and they'll reassess. I think what they should do in the interim is really assess how much they want to invest in Paul George. Like, do they think Paul George is the number 3 guy for them at $200 million? I think that's a conversation they should have this summer. And I was talking to Sai on his podcast, The Golden Days. Like, you can always move an NBA contract. It may be more expensive than another contract, but someone's always going to be willing to take the contract. So I don't know if they try to move him this summer, but I think they should take a hard look at what the next 2-3 years looks like if Paul George is on that team, and if it can look better if he's not on that team.
I think also.
What do we feel about in the offseason a Paul George for Kevin Durant trade?
Sorry. My question, I would do the cardinal sin of answering a question with a question. Why? Like, if you're Phoenix, why would you take Paul George for Kevin Durant?
Kevin Durant don't want to be there no more. Who knows? That's the rumors right now.
Yeah, I don't see that trade. I think that if Philly is motivated and they decide PG isn't their guy, I think they can move him. I don't know that Phoenix would do that because I feel like they'd be in a worse situation than they are right now. Like, you already can't really get rid of Beal unless he consents to it. So at least KD's been relatively, I know he missed a stretch of games early in the season, but at least he's been relatively healthy. I feel like Paul George has been more banged up than KD has. So I feel like you're taking a step back almost, even though PG is a little bit younger than KD. So I actually would like Kevin Durant. I don't know if this isn't one of our topics, but we're spitballing at this point. I actually would like KD in Dallas, or if he wanted to do the homegoing. I know he's always resisted going back to Washington, but why not? Especially if they get your boy, what's his name? Flag.
Flag.
Maybe you can talk KD into Washington, but I don't know I don't think Philly would be the right spot for him.
I love to see him in Dallas with Kyrie again, pair it with AD. Only concern with that big three is health. How many times they gonna be there? But I think that would be a good fit. Him going there. The Suns in general, it's looking like they gonna have to build this down, to tear it down to the studs, because now it's the reports of Budenholzer saying, "Hey, D-Book, hush it up. Let the coaches speak. I don't want to hear your voice as much." Do y'all think, with all of this is coming out now, they're losing games that on paper there's no way that they should be losing these games? Do we see a situation where we might see a KD moved, Bud fired? Like, this might be a completely blow it up, tear it down to the studs off season for the Suns.
I think you'll see KD moved and Bud fired. Definitely. There's just been a lot of bad vibes, and the easiest thing to do. I was talking to Kerry on Threads. Like, the easiest thing to do is to fire a coach, and I know it would be bad press. This would be their fourth coach in 4 years, I think, if they fired Bud. But if you don't have a locker room, I mean, there's no point in you being there, to be honest. So I think Kevin Durant will more than likely be gone. I know Windhorst has reported on that. It's just a matter of when, not if. And I think Bud does get fired. So hopefully they can do sort of either a soft rebuild or a retool. If you move Kevin Durant, maybe you get a nice young piece and a couple of picks, or if nothing else, you just get a couple of picks that maybe you can turn into a player if you do a separate deal. But yeah, I think we'll definitely see those two things happen this summer.
Any word on the Sun situation, Jared, before we move
on? To me, I think they should scrap it. I felt like they should have just kept, Chris Paul, Ayton, Mikal Bridges from the get-go. That team went to the finals, and they were still relatively young. Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, they was, could be able to grow each other with Chris Paul leading the way. And then, you got Cam Johnson there. You had Jay Crowder, another good vet. So I feel like the Suns, what they tried to do was try to build a contender too quick. And I always say, like, the basketball gods, when you try to play with them, they're not going to let you do anything. Same thing with the Warriors when they got Boogie Cousins and KD. That's why they got all them injuries. Like, the basketball gods don't like stuff like that. So I feel like, Suns, they need to just do a whole rebuild, scrap everything. I say keep Devin Booker. Devin Booker probably won't be happy going through another rebuild. So, if they want to ship him, might as well, because, he's going to be disgruntled at this point. But it's time to just tear down and definitely fire Budenholzer, because you don't tell your star player to tone it back when you're already in a losing situation and Booker's trying to be the vocal leader and you're telling him not to speak up. That's not a good look.
Yeah, that's a lot of ego talking right there. A lot of pride, a lot of arrogance. Maybe Bug, I go to church, figure some stuff out, and get rid of that. Because that's not gonna work on any team in the league that you tell your star player tone it down. That's not gonna work anywhere, Bud. So I don't know if you get another coaching job after this. If those reports is true, which it seemed like it was, because D-Book came out the next game and said, part of the issue with our team is communication. So that was obviously a shot at you, Bud. That shot at you. But staying in Phoenix, where it's some brighter news, some things that are looking more beautiful. Diana Taurasi has retired. I'ma just read this long behind resume, and y'all tell me about if she's the GOAT for y'all, and if anything comes to mind of like a favorite moment of watching Taurasi in the W. All-time leader in points. The second person closest to her is 3,000 points behind, and Tina Charles. Most three-pointers all time, fourth all-time in assists, 3 WNBA titles, 3 NCAA titles, 6 EuroLeague titles, 6 Olympic gold medals, 2009 WNBA MVP, 2-time WNBA Finals MVP, 3-time EuroLeague MVP, 3-time Russian League Player of the Year. DT, is she the GOAT for y'all?
Go ahead, Jared.
You want me to go? All right. I
Yeah, go
think
ahead.
I think she's definitely top 3. To me, I always said she's the female Kobe of the WNBA, and I think her resume speaks for itself. You could easily probably say she's the GOAT. Um, but to me, it's between her and Maya Moore at this point, and maybe Candace Parker. But yeah, she's definitely up there. I'm happy I got to live through an era where we seen Diana Taurasi play and accomplish all those things. And I didn't know she was a EuroLeague champion, so that was news to me. And I had a feeling she was going to retire, but I wasn't too sure because she took so long to announce it. So I was probably like, she's probably going to come back next season. And then they're not really doing a rebuild; they doing like a whole retool in a way. So I was thinking, all right, maybe she'll give it another run, but guess not.
Yeah, I try to stray from GOAT conversations. So I'm not going to say yes or no, but I will say it's hard to be a fan of basketball and not appreciate Diana Taurasi's contribution to the sport as a whole. Forget women's basketball, just basketball, period. Right? Like you read the resume. I there's I mean there's not a whole lot of resumes in basketball period that sort of stack up to hers. So she's been a tremendous, I think, ambassador to the game. She's been a lot of fun to watch. She's a menace, but she's got big game too. And I think someone who's had like children recently. I regret. One thing I hate is that I won't get to like show my daughters her playing live. As I try to encourage them to appreciate basketball. They're in the ballet and Roblox and stuff like that. Like, hey, basketball is like right here. Let's watch it with that. But I hate that they won't get to like see her live. Obviously, YouTube lives forever, so I can show them clips. But I mean, she's just a tremendous athlete and a tremendous basketball player. And I'm just glad I got to watch her the little bit that I did live and see what like a dominant basketball player looks like at 6 feet, 100 and however many pounds, 60 pounds. And my favorite moment from her would probably isn't even on the court, but it's whenever they had the gold medal game and she was like twerking in the back when they was all throwing champagne and everything. She still needs a little bit of work, but hey, she was feeling the bubbles, so she was living in the moment. But yeah, shout out to Diana.
Hey, did y'all hear about what she said to Draymond Green?
I was literally about to bring that up.
What did she say? I missed it.
Go ahead, Tone.
So they was in a meeting, and it was obviously the women's, USA men's, and they are going over film and stuff, and they showed DT getting double team, and she was like, Draymond, you ain't never experienced that, right? Being double team.
Oh.
She said, "How's it feel to be the only person in the room who don't get double teamed?"
Wow.
So I was literally about to say that was one of my favorite moments of DT's career. She was one of, like you said, she had that Kobe mentality in regards of she was going to do whatever she needed to do to get the dub, and she was going to tell you about it. And it was that level of what players talk about when they talk about with Kobe, that you had to earn her respect. And if DT
Right.
gave you the nod, if she rocked with you and stuff, yeah, that meant a lot to players. And even the aspect of just the mentality though. Like it reminds me of Kobe, MJ. The amount of stories of players that say that she'll talk to them before the game, like, "Hey, how's everything going? How's the kids? I just saw you won a title," and then go elbow them. Literally, game start, then got an elbow, got a chicken wing, drop 20 on them, and then immediately is like talking crazy to them. So shout out to DT. I'm not going to say she is or isn't the GOAT. For me, she's in that conversation. I have also in that conversation, like Jared said, Maya Moore. She chose love. My heart still hurts that she chose to retire, but Maya Moore definitely up in that conversation. The Candace Parkers of the world, Lisa Leslie. Can't forget the OGs that's done it. Cheryl Swoops, even though a lot of people not rocking with her for her takes on Caitlin Clark. That's a whole nother episode. We'll talk about Caitlin and what's going on this upcoming season because the Fever have been making some moves, but we'll say that for another episode. We mentioned just a couple minutes ago about Bud possibly being a guest on our podcast because he's probably not going to have a job next season. Looking at it, who do y'all see so far up until this point of the season that you would say is the coach of the year? For me, I'm going to have to put in that conversation. Probably doesn't win it, but you got to obviously look at the Detroit Pistons. 14 games they won last year. They're already 30 games. They're on pace to win 30 more games than they won the previous year. Yeah. I think he deserves some love, but I don't know if he'll win it. But for y'all, who do y'all got as the coach of the year so far?
You go ahead, Rush.
Not to surprise anybody, but I think you got to look at there's three people you got to look at. JB Bickerstaff, like you said, Kenny Atkinson, and for me, this is no particular order, JJ Redick. JB's done a fantastic job in Detroit. They did a much better job of giving Cade sort of some of the weapons they need around him for a player like him to really thrive. We've sort of seen that Malik Beasley, hallelujah, can finally hit an open 3-pointer, right? Like he did it a couple years ago when he was on the Lakers, but it's tales all this time. Players leave the Lakers and then all of a sudden remember how to shoot. But yeah, they've been balling, and they've been doing this without probably their second or third best player, Jaden Ivey, who went down with a leg injury. So I think when you look at how dire the situation was in Detroit last year and where they're at now, if Tone prediction comes true, they'll be a top 4 seed in the East. I think you kind of have to look at JB as a front runner. Kenny Atkinson, I've always been a big fan of him and what he did in Brooklyn. He's sort of tailor fit for a young team without like a real true ultra mega superstar, and just get guys to play within themselves, buy into a system, and really maximize their potential within that system. Cleveland has just been lights out, so you can't really be mad if Kenny's the guy. But JJ Redick, a podcaster, as everybody wanted to call him last summer when he was hired, has taken a team that has been in the play-in for like the last, was it 3 seasons, 2-3 seasons, and has them as the second seed right now. Now I don't know that they'll finish with the second seed. 2 through 5 is like 1 game difference. If you had to ask me, they'll probably end up in that 4 to 5 range. But nonetheless, I think you have to look at what JJ's done with that roster. Granted, they've made a couple of moves to make the roster make sense around LeBron and now Luka. I don't think you can look at how prepared that team is, the strides they've made defensively here late in the season, how he's gotten the players to buy in. Like, I don't know that you can look at that for a first-year guy. To forget about first year as a head coach, first-year coaching. We're not counting his kids, whatever league. Like, first-year coaching period in the league, and he's got these guys in the second seed at this stage of the season. Can't dismiss him. That's all I'm gonna say.
Jared, I think you sent it before the show. You said you had Thibodeau up there, right?
I said that. I said that. Hey, Knicks is third right now, so But going back to what y'all was saying, Kenny Atkinson, Bickerstaff, JJ, all great picks. I want to throw another name out there that nobody's probably talking about. Ime Udoka. The the way he took the Rockets in 2 seasons to turn it around. There was at 500 last year. The season before that, it was well under 500. Now they are currently the fifth seed. I think he should get some consideration as well. He transformed Sengun into an all-star. Um, I'm not gonna lie to you, he got me rooting for Dylan Brooks. I didn't like Dylan Brooks before. Now I'm rooting for him because I like this Rockets team. So I feel like he should get some consideration. But for me, I think it's going to come down to probably Kenny Atkinson. For even though JJ he's doing a great job with the Lakers right now, but what the Cavs are doing, like they were breaking records early in the season, and like the records they were breaking, it was the first time for a coach to do that in his first season with a team. So I feel like he probably should be the runaway favorite, but it's going to end up being a close one. I feel like the three that we named it'll come down to those three.
Kenny doing his thing over there. They are the first team so far this year. They hit 50 wins, right? First team to hit 50 wins on the season so far. Like you said, they've been doing their job. Kenny's been doing what he's supposed to do. He did it with Brooklyn. Brooklyn should have never let him go. Now he's over here in Cleveland, and he has what a lot of people, and Jared's talked about it too, a lot of people were thinking, y'all got to break up Jared and Jared. What's this yoga last name? Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. Break them up. Break up Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. They kept the roster pretty much together, and he's making it work. So he's definitely up there. I'm going right now just on the fact that it was 14-win season last year to where they are now, even if they don't get the fourth seed like my prediction. To turn around a 20-30 win difference, absolutely bananas with Ivy being out too. Shout out to JB Bickerstaff and what he's doing. I'm a Lakers fan. Of course, I appreciate what JJ's been doing. Over the last 15 games, throw this out there. The last 15 games, the Lakers are the number one defensive team. Just throw that out there. Number one defensive team. So, yes, JJ, we appreciate you, what you doing over there. I want to ask you this before we end off with a little draft, a little fun. Mentioning that defense, it's been conversations. Do you think Rush and Jared, of course, you can answer your viewpoint because it might be different from Rush. Do you think LeBron has earned an all defensive team spot, first or second team? Do you think he's earned that?
No.
This season? No. LeBron?
No.
LeBron hasn't played defense in 10 years.
So, I feel like I got to defend our king, King James. I mean, he's been better this year. I think once you get into like February, from February to like present, which isn't that long relative to what's behind it, I think he's been a lot more engaged. This is usually the time of year you see players sort of lock in because the teams are starting to make a push. But I think, like everyone has said, Luka has sort of revitalized LeBron. And if you watch what they did to Jokic against, in that Denver game, a lot of it, Bron was a big part of that. Everybody was sort of moving on a string, but a lot of it was Bron fronting or playing behind or sort of directing on that back line. So no, he's not going to be all defensive, but I think he has done, for a 40-year-old who's also carrying a heavy load on offense, I think he's done a tremendous job defensively here within the last couple, 90 days, 60 days or so. But all defensive, no.
I just had to bring that in to help some of Laker Nation come down, because I've seen the conversations. He's gonna make an all defensive team. I was like, he's he's been locked in as of late. But when you look at the entirety of the season, I don't know if he can get there just off of what you've done towards this back end.
Now, I'll absolutely campaign for him for a first or second all NBA, like offensively. Maybe even I don't think MVP is should be out of the conversation. To be honest with you,
He's forefront.
Yeah, so I mean, I think he could be like top 3, honestly. And I'll take whatever people say about it, like me just being a Lakers fan. Like, no, like you look at what he's doing, especially since he's turned 40, compared to his last MVP season. Like, it's just ridiculous. And I hate that. Is it not ridiculous that he hasn't had an MVP in like over a decade?
Yes.
It's wild to me that he did all that work. Like got all of his MVPs however many years ago, and hasn't had one since. But that's another conversation. But no, I think he'd definitely make an argument for MVP and all NBA, but all defensive, nah.
I think he'll get a Finals MVP before he edges his way out. So that'll make up for it. I think he'll definitely take it too. I'll take the Finals MVP. Yeah, I won't give me the regular season MVP, but I'll take the Finals MVP. Just random thought. I should have brought this up when we talked about the face of the league conversation, because I read an article by Michael Lee that was talking to Jason Tatum with similar conversation. And speaking of Finals MVP, he said that he should have won the Finals MVP actually last season. I don't know if y'all
said that.
Yes. I don't know if y'all read the article or heard any of the quotes from the article.
I haven't seen it.
No, this is the first I'm hearing of it, but I'm definitely gonna go look at it once we get off this, because I need to see like one. I need to see if there's like a video, if there's like an expanded quote. Not that I don't trust you, but a lot of times context gets lost in the weeds with stuff like this. But that's interesting just to hear.
We will save that for next episode. It's not video. As far as I only read, unless he recorded somewhere else. It was only article. It was article written. I'm gonna give it to you. It is on the Washington Post by Michael Lee. It is the conversation. Jason Tatum could be the face of the NBA. He'd rather just keep winning. The Boston Celtics star is often discounted in discussions about the league's best young players, so his resume will have to speak for itself. So within that article, he vacillates from like, I don't care about it, to you definitely care about it. He's like, I've done XYZ. I don't know why I'm not the face. I'll let y'all read it. We will talk about it on the next episode, because I think it was very interesting. And at this point, with y'all trying to go get another ring, to bring that up and have that conversation, I think that's very interesting in a bigger conversation of Tatum doesn't feel respected, that he's not in that conversation for face of the league. That's another episode.
I'm more impressed that you managed to slide the word vacillates into your little speech. Right, I feel like I got to step my vocabulary game up now. Like, god damn, we're tone over here talking about vacillates. Goodness gracious. So let me go get it. Let me go hop in my dictionary before we record next. I got to one up you.
We talking about defense and all defensive teams this season, right? If you had to choose a Mount Rushmore of defenders, you could go perimeter, you could go bigs. We're going to do a draft of it. So once the name is called, you cannot choose it. We'll start off. Jared gets the first overall pick. Rush gets the second. And I will get the third pick. And we will keep it going like that. So with the number 1 overall pick of the Mount Rushmore of NBA defenders in the 2024-25 season, Jared L. Spence, who do you select?
Wemby. Easy. I think that was a consensus for everybody.
I'll take
Wemby is off the board.
I'll take Dyson Daniels.
Oh, Dyson. I'm going to take Amen Thompson.
Interesting.
That was gonna be my next pick. I'm gonna take the old savvy veteran, Drew Holiday.
Ooh, okay. Good old Drew. All right. Rush, who you got?
I'm surprised y'all neither one of y'all picked them. But especially you, Tone, I'm disappointed. But I'll take Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis.
Mhm.
I knew he was going.
Highly disappointed, but I'm gonna let it slide because you said vacillate. You worked vacillate into the podcast, so I'm gonna let it slide.
I'm gonna go with another perimeter guy. I'm gonna go with Tumani Kamara.
Oh, that's a sleeper right there. Mm. Surprised nobody picked this guy. Even though I don't like that he does not rebound the ball as much, but I'm gonna go with Jaren Jackson Jr.
I was actually gonna pick him next, but I'm at the mercy of draft order. Send my send my protest into the league. I don't know who came up with this draft structure. Let me be honest. Why not?
God damn, I should have picked him earlier. I was gonna go
Let
Giannis.
me be honest.
That was on me that I waited too late. Give me Bam Adebayo. And the last pick of the draft, Jared L. Spence. Who are you at?
I'm going to go with
Karl Anthony Towns?
no, but I'm gonna go with.
Oh my god!
But I'm gonna go with another Dick, OG Anunoby.
OG Anunoby. Okay.
This is tough. You know what? Give me Jaylen Brown.
Okay.
Jaylen Brown. Okay. And for my last pick, I am going to round it out with dang. I'm going to round it out with give me J Dub. Jalen Williams over in OKC.
Mm-hmm.
All right, for our listeners and our viewers, we are going to put this up. Make sure y'all let us know in the comments. Y'all vote. Tell us who has the best team.
Hold on. Nobody picked Gobert.
Oh, we know that was on purpose.
And I'm actually surprised nobody picked Evan Mobley.
I was thinking about Mobley, but I'm good off of that.
I didn't actually write my names down, so I'm going. I'm never prepared, so I was just going off the dome. But I feel like my squad: Giannis, AD, Dyson, and Jalen. I feel like that's pretty good because if Jalen, Jalen's pretty solid defensively.
I'm gonna throw a stat out for y'all real quick. I'm gonna be on Tone's seat real quick. So, Jared Jackson Jr. and Amen Thompson, the only two players in the league with 60 plus blocks and 60 plus steals, minus Wembanyama, who has 50 plus steals and 150 blocks. This is before he got hurt. And Dyson Daniels is leading the league in steals with 3.1.
That's a great stat right there. I'm gonna throw this out too, just to show him some love because I knew he wasn't gonna get drafted by none of us. But Chris Dunn is having a really good defensive season as well.
I thought about Dunn. I thought hard about it, but yeah.
To throw out a stat, right? In this pool of players, Chris Dunn, Kamara, Dyson Daniels, Alex Caruso, Amen Thompson, Asar Thompson, he has fouled the least out of all of them. And one of the analytics is like the level of difficulty for players that you have to guard. Chris Dunn out of that group has the highest percentage regarding that, but with the lowest foul percentage.
Chris Dunn from the Clippers?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow.
So shout out to Chris Dunn. But you already know we had a great episode. We just need you. Hit the like, subscribe, share, tell any and everybody about this podcast. Let the algorithm know that this is great content that needs to be pushed out. We appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all on the next episode, Corner 3.